Ambassador Sarah Chun stood in the center of the Great Hall, her hands clasped behind her back. The massive chamber stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Around her, 12 towering seats formed a perfect circle, each one holding a being that represented millions of years of evolution and power. She had been coming to this place for 3 years now. 3 long years of meetings, arguments, and pleading. Today would be different. Today, the Galactic Council would make their final decision about humanity. The Zephyrian speaker rose first from his crystal seat. His body looked like flowing water held in the shape of a tall, thin person. When he spoke, his voice echoed like wind through empty caves. "We have discussed this matter for many cycles," the Zephyrian said. "The human species has shown us what they truly are. They expand too fast. They take risks that endanger everyone. They refuse to follow the rules that have kept peace in our galaxy for 1,000,000 years." Sarah felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. She had learned that showing emotion in this place was seen as weakness. The council members were all ancient beings who had lived for thousands of years. They saw humans as children. Throwing tantrums, the Cortex representative stood next. She was a massive creature with 6 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Her voice rumbled like distant thunder. "In the past 50 years, humans have started colonies on 47 worlds," the Cortex said. "They did not ask permission for half of these worlds. They simply arrived and began building. This is not the way civilized species behave." Sarah wanted to speak up, to explain that humans needed room to grow, that their population was expanding, and they needed new homes. But she knew it would not matter. She had tried explaining this before. The ethereal council member floated above his seat, his body made of pure energy that hurt to look at directly. When he communicated, the words appeared directly in Sarah's mind. "The humans have also shown dangerous behavior in their treatment of artificial intelligence." The ethereal's thoughts pressed into her consciousness. "They create thinking machines and then treat them as slaves. They do not understand the responsibility that comes with creating consciousness." This accusation stung Sarah more than the others. Humanity's AI development had been rapid and sometimes careless. There had been incidents where human-created AIs had rebelled or malfunctioned. The Council saw this as proof that humans were too reckless to be trusted with advanced technology. One by one, the other Council members spoke. The insectoid hive queen clicked and buzzed her complaints about human expansion into space that her people considered sacred. The gas giant dwelling stormcallers accused humans of polluting space lanes with their crude fusion drives. The plant-like Gardner spoke of how human terraforming destroyed natural ecosystems. Sarah listened to each accusation, each complaint, each fear. She had heard them all before. Some were fair criticisms. Humans did expand quickly and sometimes carelessly. They did take risks that other species found frightening. They did make mistakes with technology that had consequences, but they also brought new innovations, new ways of solving problems, new energy and hope to a galaxy that had been static for centuries. The council members never wanted to hear about that side of humanity. Finally, the eldest member of the council rose to speak. The Ancient One was so old that no one knew what species he had originally been. His body was mostly mechanical now, kept alive by technology that was older than human. Civilization. When he spoke, every other council member fell silent. "We have been patient with the humans," the Ancient One said, his voice like grinding metal. "We allowed them into our civilization when they were still primitive. We shared our knowledge and our trade routes. We hoped they would learn wisdom and restraint." The Ancient One paused, and Sarah felt the weight of his attention fall on her like a physical force. "Instead, they have proven themselves to be a threat to the stability we have maintained for eons. They reproduce too quickly. They consume resources without thought for conservation. They create weapons and tools without considering the consequences. Most dangerous of all, they inspire other species to question the order we have built." Sarah's blood went cold at those last words. She had not realized that the council was worried about humans influencing other species. But thinking about it now, She remembered reports of younger species asking human advisors for help with problems the Council had ignored for centuries. Therefore, the Ancient One continued, we have reached our decision. The human species will be removed from all Council protections and privileges. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be abandoned within 1 standard year. All trade agreements with human governments are hereby cancelled. All technology licenses granted to humanity are revoked. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had expected this might happen, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that preparation could not. Furthermore, the Ancient One sighed, any species that continues to trade with or assist humanity after the deadline will face similar sanctions. Humanity will be quarantined in their home system until such time as they prove they have learned to control their destructive impulses. Sarah finally found her voice. How long will this quarantine last? What must we do to prove ourselves to you? The Ancient One's mechanical eyes focused on her with something that might have been pity. Young human, your species asks the wrong questions. You ask how long as if this is a temporary punishment. You ask what you must do as if there are simple tasks to complete. The truth is that we do not believe your species is capable of the fundamental change required. This is not a test you can pass. This is a recognition of what you are. The Zephyrian speaker began to glow brighter, indicating agreement with the Ancient One's words. Your species is like a virus in the body of galactic civilization, the Zephyrian sighed. You spread quickly, you consume everything around you, and you cause other healthy cells to become infected with your chaos? The only treatment is isolation. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. Losing her temper now would only prove their point about human emotional instability. What about the human civilians living on the colony worlds? She asked. Many of them were born on those planets. They know no other home. The Cortex representative waved one of her massive hands dismissively. They will adapt or they will not. This is not our concern. We have given you 1 year to complete the evacuation. That is more generous than your species deserves. And what about the humans who refuse to leave? Sarah pressed. Some colonies have been established for generations. The people there will resist forced relocation. The Ancient One's mechanical features shifted into what might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it. Then they will discover what happens when a species defies the will of the Galactic Council. Our enforcement fleets are already moving toward human space. Any colony that remains after the deadline will be removed by force. Sarah felt the full weight of the disaster falling on her shoulders. 47 colony worlds, each with populations in the millions. Industries, families, entire civilizations that would have to be uprooted and forced back to an already overcrowded Earth. The session is concluded, the Ancient One announced. Ambassador Chun, you have 1 standard day to transmit our decision to your government. After that, all human diplomatic missions will be expelled from Council space. The Council members began to rise from their seats, each one turning away from Sarah as if she had already ceased to exist. She stood alone in the center of the vast chamber, surrounded by beings who had just condemned her entire species to exile and isolation. As the last council member left the chamber, Sarah finally allowed herself to show emotion. Tears ran down her face, but they were not tears of sadness or fear. They were tears of rage. The council thought they were protecting the galaxy from humanity's chaos. They thought they were teaching humans a lesson about the consequences of defying ancient wisdom. They had no idea what they had just done. Humanity had always been at its most dangerous when backed into a corner with nothing left to lose. The council had just taken away everything humans had built among the stars and told them they were not worthy of a place in galactic civilization. Sarah wiped her tears away and walked toward the chamber's exit. She had a message to send to Earth, and then she had to figure out how to evacuate 47 worlds in 1 year. But even as she planned for the massive logistical nightmare ahead, part of her mind was already thinking about what would come. After the council had made one critical mistake in their judgment, they assumed that isolation would weaken humanity. They had no understanding of what humans were capable of when they had to rely only on themselves. Dr. Marcus Webb stared at the equations floating in the holographic display above his desk. The numbers made no sense according to everything he had learned about physics in the past 30 years, but the experimental results did not lie. Something impossible was happening in his laboratory. 5 years had passed since the Council's ultimatum. 5 years since the great evacuation that brought 47 colony worlds worth of people back to an already crowded Earth. 5 years since humanity had been cut off from the rest of the galaxy like a diseased limb. The first 2 years had been hell. Earth's infrastructure could not handle the sudden influx of refugees from the colonies. Food shortages led to riots in major cities. The global economy collapsed when trade with alien civilizations stopped overnight. Unemployment reached levels not seen since the ancient wars of the 20th century. Marcus remembered those dark days clearly. He had been working at the International Physics Institute then, watching helplessly as funding for research dried up. The government was too busy dealing with food distribution and housing crises to care about theoretical science. Half of his colleagues had quit to find jobs in agriculture or construction, but something strange had started happening in the third year. With no access to alien technology or alien scientific databases, human researchers had been forced to start from scratch. They could no longer rely on theories developed by species millions of years older than them. They had to figure things out for themselves. Marcus had been part of a small team trying to understand why human fusion drives were so much less efficient than the ones used by other species. The Council had always told them that human engineering was crude and wasteful. Human scientists had accepted this as fact, but when Marcus and his team started looking at the fundamental principles involved, they found something unexpected. The alien designs were not actually more efficient. They were just different. The aliens had developed their technology along very specific paths, following rules that had been established millions of years ago. Humans, starting fresh, began finding new paths that the older species had never considered. The breakthrough came when Dr. Sarah Kim, Marcus's research partner, suggested that they stop trying to copy alien designs and instead focus on uniquely human approaches to the problem. Human brains work differently than alien minds. Maybe human technology should work differently too. Marcus looked up from his equations as the laboratory door slid open. Sarah walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee, her hair messy from a long night of work. She had been pulling 80-hour days for weeks, driven by the same obsession that kept Marcus at his desk until dawn. Any progress on the quantum resonance problem? Sarah asked, handing him one of the cups. Marcus gestured at the holographic display. Look at this. If these calculations are correct, we should be able to create a stable quantum field that actually amplifies energy instead of consuming it. Sarah studied the equations, her eyebrows rising higher with each line of mathematical symbols. Marcus, this violates the second law of thermodynamics. You cannot get more energy out of a system than you put in. That is what I thought too, Marcus said. But look at the experimental data from yesterday's test. He pulled up another display showing energy readings from their laboratory equipment. The graph showed a clear pattern of energy input followed by energy output that was significantly higher than what had been put in. Sarah stared at the data for a long moment. This has to be a measurement error. We must have made a mistake somewhere. I thought so too. So I ran the experiment 6 more times with different equipment, same result every time. Sarah sat down heavily in her chair. If this is real, it changes everything we know about physics. Marcus nodded. And it explains why the Council scientists never discovered it. Their physics is based on principles that assume this kind of effect is impossible. They never even looked for it. The 2 scientists spent the next hour going through the data again, checking every calculation and measurement. The results remained consistent. Somehow, human technology was achieving something that galactic science said could not exist. Meanwhile, across the solar system on Mars colony, engineer Zara Okafor was having her own impossible breakthrough. The terraforming project on Mars had been abandoned when the Council cut off trade, but Zara had stayed behind with a small team to maintain the atmospheric processors. Without access to alien replacement parts, Zara had been forced to design new components using only human manufacturing capabilities. What she discovered was that human-designed parts actually worked better than the alien ones they replaced. The alien atmospheric processors were designed to work slowly and safely, taking centuries to transform a planet's atmosphere. The Council species had learned to be cautious over millions of years of existence. They preferred methods that were proven and predictable. Zara's human-designed modifications worked 10 times faster. They used techniques that alien engineers would have considered dangerously unstable. But Zara understood something that the aliens did not. Humans were good at managing controlled chaos. They could make unstable systems work by constantly adjusting and adapting them. In just 3 years, Zara's team had made more progress on Mars terraforming than the previous 50 years of alien-supervised work. The atmosphere was becoming breathable. Ahead of all predictions, plants that were supposed to take decades to establish were already growing in the Martian soil, back on Earth. Similar breakthroughs were happening in laboratories and workshops around the world. Cut off from alien guidance, human creativity was exploding in directions that galactic civilization had never explored. Dr. Chun-Li was developing artificial intelligence systems that learned and adapted in ways that frightened even their creators. Unlike Alien AIs, which were programmed to follow strict logical parameters, Chenza seemed to develop something resembling intuition and creativity. The Council had always been suspicious of human AI research because human-created AIs sometimes behaved unpredictably. Now, Chin was beginning to understand why. Human AIs were not malfunctioning when they acted unpredictably. They were evolving beyond their original programming in ways that purely logical alien minds could not comprehend. Engineer Maria Santos was working on propulsion systems that bent space-time in ways that should have been impossible with human technology. Her designs used principles that alien physicists had dismissed as theoretical curiosities with no practical applications. But Maria was not bound by millions of years of "we have always done it this way" thinking. She approached the problems with fresh human perspectives, and she was achieving results that would have shocked the Council's best scientists. Dr. James Utiffer, Zara's brother, was working on communications technology that transmitted information faster than light without using the quantum relay networks that the Council controlled. His breakthrough came when he stopped trying to replicate alien technology and instead focused on uniquely human approaches to the problem. All across human space, the same pattern was repeating. Scientists and engineers who had been forced to work without alien guidance were discovering that human approaches to technology were not inferior to galactic standards. They were just different. And, in many cases, they were better. The isolation that was supposed to cripple human development was instead unleashing human potential that had been suppressed for decades. Without alien experts telling them what was possible and what was not, humans were discovering possibilities that the galaxy had never imagined. Marcus looked up from his work as an alert chimed on his communication system. It was a message from the Global Science Coordination Committee, the organization that had been formed to share research discoveries between different human research groups. The message contained preliminary reports from dozens of research teams around the solar system. Each team was reporting breakthroughs that should have been impossible. Energy generation systems that produced more power than they consumed. Propulsion drives that moved ships faster than anything in the galactic registry. AI systems that displayed creativity and intuition that surpassed even the most advanced alien computers. But the most exciting report came from a team working on dimensional physics. They claimed to have achieved something that alien science said was purely theoretical. They had opened a stable portal to what appeared to be an alternate dimension where the laws of physics worked differently. Sarah read the report over Marcus's shoulder, her eyes growing wide with each paragraph. "Marcus, if even half of these reports are accurate, we are not the same species that the Council exiled 5 years ago. Marcus nodded slowly. I think that was exactly their mistake. They assumed that cutting us off from their technology would make us weaker. They did not understand that their technology was actually holding us back. But why? Sarah asked. Why are we suddenly achieving things that should be impossible? Marcus thought about this question for a long moment. I think it is because we approach problems differently than they do. The council species have been around for millions of years. They have learned to be careful and conservative. They stick to methods that are proven and safe. And humans? Humans are young and reckless. We try things that older species would never attempt because they know it should not work. But sometimes Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the stars bend and twist around her ship in ways that should have been impossible. The new human drive system moved through space like a knife cutting through reality itself, leaving ripples in dimensions that galactic science insisted did not exist. Distance to the Vorthak patrol station? Elena asked her navigation officer. Lieutenant Hayes checked his readings twice before answering. 18 million kilometers. And closing, Captain. We should be within their sensor range in approximately 3 minutes. Elena nodded. 3 minutes to make first contact with an alien species for the first time in 8 years. 3 minutes to announce that humanity had returned to galactic space. 3 minutes to show the galaxy what humans had become during their exile. The Prometheus was unlike any ship that had ever existed in galactic space. Its hull was made from materials that human scientists had developed by manipulating matter at the quantum level. Its engines drew power from dimensional rifts that tapped into energy sources the Council had never discovered. Its AI system, named Arya, possessed creativity and intuition that surpassed even human intelligence. Captain, Arya's voice came through the ship's communication system, sounding almost human but with subtle harmonics that revealed its artificial nature. I am detecting increased activity from the Vorthak station. They appear to be powering up their defensive systems. Elena smiled. Can you tell what type of weapons they are using? Standard Council-approved plasma batteries and quantum disruptors, Arya replied. Based on my analysis of their energy signatures, these weapons would have been considered advanced technology when humanity was first exiled. And how would they affect our ship? They would not, Arya said with what sounded like amusement. Our hull configuration and shielding systems operate on principles that these weapons cannot interact with. It would be like trying to hurt a ghost with conventional bullets. Elena's smile grew wider. The Vorthak had been one of the species most vocal about supporting humanity's exile. Their representative on the council had called humans a disease that spreads chaos wherever it goes. Now Elena would get to show them what that chaos had accomplished. All stations, prepare for first contact, Elena announced through the ship's internal communication system. Remember, we are not here to threaten or attack. We are here to announce our return. Let them make the first move. The minutes passed slowly as the Prometheus approached the Vorthak station. Elena could see it now on the main view screen, a massive structure that looked like a crystalline flower blooming in space. Vorthak architecture had always been beautiful, but Elena knew that beauty hid some of the most advanced weapons in Council space. Captain, we are being hailed by the station, Lieutenant Hayes reported. Put them through. The main view screen flickered and showed the interior of the Vorthak command center. The station commander was a tall, elegant being with skin that shifted between blue and silver depending on the light. Like all Vorthak, he moved with a fluid grace that made humans look clumsy by comparison. Unknown vessel, the commander said in perfect English. You are entering Vorthak territory without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or face the consequences. Elena stepped forward so she would be clearly visible on the transmission. I am Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earthship Prometheus. We are requesting permission to pass through your territory on our way to Council space. The Vorthak commander's skin shifted to a deep red color, indicating surprise and alarm. Impossible. Humans are quarantined in the Sol system. No human ship has the technology to reach this distance from Earth. Evidently, Commander, your information is out of date. The commander studied Elena's image for a long moment, his skin, colors cycling through several different hues as he processed this unexpected development. Even if you are truly human, which I doubt, you are violating the terms of your quarantine. You will shut down your engines immediately and prepare to be escorted back to Sol System. Elena shook her head. I'm afraid we cannot do that, Commander. We have business in Council space that cannot wait. The Vorthek commander's skin turned a bright orange color that Elena recognized as indicating anger and aggression. You have no choice in this matter. Our weapons are targeted on your vessel. Surrender now or we will open fire. Commander, Elena said patiently, I strongly advise against that course of action. You dare to threaten a Council enforcement station? Not a threat, Commander. A warning. Your weapons cannot harm our ship, but if you fire on us, we will be forced to defend ourselves. I would prefer to avoid any unpleasant incidents. The Vorthek commander made a gesture that Elena's translation system indicated was roughly equivalent to a human laughing in disbelief. Your human arrogance has not changed during your exile. Very well, you will learn the price of defying Council authority. The transmission ended, and Elena immediately felt the ship's systems respond to incoming weapons fire. The Prometheus's AI began defensive procedures automatically, but Elena was curious to see what would happen when Council weapons met human technology. Report, Elena called out. The Vorthek station is firing everything they have at us, Lieutenant. Hayes reported. Plasma batteries, quantum disruptors, and some kind of exotic particle beam I don't recognize. And our status? No damage, Captain. The weapons are passing right through our hull without any interaction. Arya was correct. It's like they're firing at empty space. Elena watched the tactical display as streams of energy weapons struck the Prometheus and simply disappeared like water poured on sand. The Vorthek station was putting out enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but the human ship continued moving forward as if nothing was happening. Open a channel to the station. Elena ordered. The Vorthek commander reappeared on the screen, his skin now cycling rapidly between colors that indicated confusion, fear, and disbelief. How is this possible? The commander demanded. Our sensors show direct hits on your vessel. You should be space debris by now. Commander, 8 years ago, your people and the rest of the Council decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain in galactic civilization. You were right to be afraid of US, but not for the reasons you thought. Elena paused to let her words sink in. You thought we were dangerous because we were chaotic and unpredictable. You thought isolating us would make us weak and teach us to follow your rules. Instead, it taught us that we don't need your rules. We found our own way. The Vorthek commander's skin had settled into a pale gray color that Elena had never seen before. She suspected it indicated a level of shock that the Vorthek language had no word for. What do you want? The commander asked quietly. For now, just safe passage through your territory. But Commander, you need to send a message to the Council. Tell them that humanity has returned to galactic space. Tell them that the quarantine is over, whether they like it or not. They will never accept this. The Council will send fleets to force you back to Sol System. Elena's smile held no warmth. Let them try. Commander, you have just fired some of the most advanced weapons in Council space at a single human ship. Those weapons had no effect whatsoever. What do you think will happen if the Council sends fleets against us? The Vorthek commander said nothing, but his skin color told Elena that he understood the implications. Furthermore, Elena continued, This is just one ship. There are others, many others. Humanity spent 8 years in isolation developing technology that your science says should not exist. We are not the same species that you exiled. Elena gestured to her crew around the bridge. Look at us, Commander. Do we look defeated? Do we look like we have learned our lesson and become obedient to Council authority? The answer was obvious. Elena and her crew moved with confidence and purpose that came from knowing they possessed capabilities that the galaxy could not match. They had been cast out as failures and had returned as something beyond the Council's understanding. The galaxy is about to change, Commander, Elena said. The old order that the Council has maintained for millions of years is ending. You can choose to be part of what comes next, or you can cling to the past and become irrelevant. Elena nodded to Lieutenant Hayes, who closed the communication channel. Set course for the next system, Elena ordered. And send a message to Earth. Tell them that first contact was successful and that we are proceeding to Council space as planned as the Prometheus moved away from the Vortex station. Elena looked out at the stars and thought about what was coming next. The Council had spent 8 years believing that they had solved the problem of human unpredictability by locking humanity away in their home system. They had no idea that the humans who would soon arrive in Council space were not the same species. They had exiled. These humans had been forged in isolation, driven by the need to survive and thrive without any outside help. They had discovered capabilities that galactic science insisted were impossible. The Council had feared human chaos and unpredictability. Now they were about to discover what humans could accomplish when that chaos was directed by 8 years of focused determination and unlimited creativity behind the Prometheus. The Vortex station remained silent, its commander staring at sensor readings that made no sense according to everything he knew about physics and the emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of receiving the report from the Vortex station. Around the great circular chamber, the 12 ancient seats were filled with beings who had not felt genuine fear in thousands of years. Today, that changed. The Ancient One's mechanical body whirred softly as he processed the data streams flowing from across Council space. Reports were coming in from every border system. Human ships had appeared simultaneously at dozens of locations, all of them demonstrating technology that violated every known law of physics. This cannot be accurate, the Zephyrian representative said, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. The reports claim that human weapons pass through our defensive shields as if they do not exist. This is impossible. The Cortex delegate's 6 arms moved restlessly as she spoke. My people's fortress world of Granite Prime reports that a human vessel appeared inside our defensive perimeter without triggering any alarms. It simply materialized in space where nothing had been moments before. Materialized? The insectoid Hive Queen's compound eyes reflected her disbelief. Ships do not materialize. They travel through space or use quantum gates. There is no other method of faster-than-light travel. The Ancient One raised one mechanical hand for silence. Show them the recordings. The chamber's central display activated, showing footage from the Vorthak encounter. The Council members watched in stunned silence as the human ship called Prometheus absorbed weapons fire that should have reduced it to atomic particles. They saw Captain Rodriguez speak with calm confidence that bordered on arrogance. They heard her casual dismissal of threats that would have terrified any normal species. When the recording ended, the chamber remained silent for long minutes. The ethereal Council member's energy form pulsed with distress as his thoughts reached out to the others. This is not the same species we exiled 8 years ago. These beings demonstrate capabilities that our science says should not exist. Perhaps our science is wrong, the plant-like gardener suggested, his wooden voice creaking with uncertainty. Perhaps there are principles of physics that we have not discovered in our millions of years of existence. This suggestion sent ripples of shock through the Council. The idea that their ancient knowledge might be incomplete was almost unthinkable. To beings who had ruled the galaxy for eons, the Stormcaller representative, a being of living electricity who dwelled in gas-giant atmospheres, sparked with agitation. If humans have discovered new physics, then they possess advantages we cannot counter. Our entire military doctrine is based on technologies they apparently consider obsolete. The Ancient One's sensors analyzed the fear levels in the chamber and found them higher than any reading in the Council's recorded history. These beings had lived so long and grown so powerful that they had forgotten what it felt like to encounter something beyond their control. We must consider the possibility, the Ancient One said slowly, that isolating the humans was the greatest mistake in galactic history. The words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock that spread through the chamber. "You cannot be serious," the Zephyrian protested. Humans were chaotic and dangerous. They expanded too quickly, took too many risks, refused to follow established protocols. Isolation was the only way to contain them. And now they have returned with capabilities that make our containment efforts meaningless, the Ancient One replied. "We forced them to develop in isolation, without our guidance or restrictions. We gave them 8 years to pursue whatever research directions they chose, with no oversight or limitations." The implications of this statement slowly sank in. The Council had always controlled technological development throughout the galaxy. New species were given access to established technologies and taught to follow proven methods. Innovation was carefully managed and restricted to prevent dangerous discoveries, but humanity had been cut off from this system entirely. For 8 years, they had been free to explore any research direction they wanted, no matter how dangerous or unconventional. "What do we know about their current capabilities?" the Hive Queen asked. The Ancient One consulted his data files. Reports from 17 different systems confirm that human ships can pass through solid matter at will. Their weapons appear to manipulate reality itself rather than using conventional energy or projectile systems. Their vessels move through space in ways that ignore gravitational fields and stellar obstacles. He paused to let this information settle before continuing. Most disturbing of all, they seem to possess some form of instantaneous communication that allows perfect coordination between ships separated by hundreds of light years. This suggests they have solved the quantum entanglement problem that our best scientists have been working on for millennia. The chamber erupted in alarmed discussions as the council members realized the full scope of what they were facing. Humans had not just developed new technology during their exile. They had apparently transcended the basic limitations that governed all other known species. "How many ships do they have?" the gardener asked. "Unknown," the Ancient One admitted. "They appear simultaneously in multiple systems without warning. Our sensor networks cannot track their movements or predict where they will appear next. For all we know, they could have hundreds of vessels or thousands." The ethereal's energy form dimmed with distress. "If they possess this level of technology, why have they not attacked us? They could have destroyed our stations and fleets before we even knew they were there." This question hung in the air like a challenge. Indeed, if humans wanted revenge for their exile, they clearly had the power to take it. The fact that they had not done so was perhaps more frightening than if they had. "Perhaps," the Cortex suggested hesitantly, "they no longer consider us worth attacking." The silence that followed this statement was deafening. The idea that humans might see the mighty Galactic Council as irrelevant was almost too shocking to contemplate. "We need to understand their intentions," the Ancient One decided. "I propose we attempt to make contact with their leadership." "Contact?" The Zephyrian's form flared with alarm. "How do we contact beings who can appear anywhere they choose without warning? How do we negotiate with a species that treats our most advanced weapons as minor annoyances?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The Council's security systems were detecting massive energy. Signatures appearing throughout the Council space. The central display activated automatically, showing views from sensors positioned around each of the 12 Council homeworlds. What they saw defied all logic and reason. Enormous human fleets had appeared in orbit around every single Council homeworld simultaneously. The ships were unlike anything in the galactic database, with designs that seemed to bend light and space around them. They hung in space like dark omens, visible but somehow not quite real. "How many ships?" the Hive Queen whispered. The Ancient One's sensors worked frantically to count the vessels, but the numbers kept changing as his instruments struggled to track objects that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Approximately 1,000 ships around each homeworld," he finally reported. 12,000 vessels total, all appearing at the same moment across distances that should require months to travel. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The human fleet was larger than the combined military forces of the entire Galactic Council. Worse, they had demonstrated the ability to position this fleet anywhere they wanted, at any time, without warning. "Are they taking aggressive action?" the gardener asked, his wooden voice barely above a whisper. "No," the Ancient One replied. "After checking all available sensors, the human fleets are maintaining position in high orbit. They are not targeting our cities or military installations. They are simply dieting. Waiting for what?" "I believe," the Ancient One said slowly, "they are waiting for us to contact them." The realization hit the council like a physical blow. The humans were not threatening or demanding anything. They were not making ultimatums or issuing challenges. They had simply appeared with overwhelming force around every council homeworld and were patiently waiting for the council to make the next move. It was a demonstration of power so complete and so casual that it redefined the balance of galactic civilization in a single moment. "Open a communication channel to the human fleet," the Ancient One ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we wish to speak with their leadership." As the technicians worked to establish communication, the council members sat in their ancient seats and contemplated a truth that none of them wanted to acknowledge. 8 years ago, they had exiled humanity to protect galactic civilization from human chaos and unpredictability. Now those same humans had returned with technology that made the Council's greatest achievements look like primitive tools. They commanded fleets that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. They possessed weapons and defenses that operated beyond the understanding of galactic science, most humbling of all. They had achieved this transformation while showing remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the Council's homeworlds before anyone knew they were there. Instead, they had chosen to announce their presence and wait for a response. The humans had not returned, seeking revenge or conquest. They had. Admiral Elena Chun stepped into the great chamber of the Galactic Council with the quiet confidence of someone who held the future of civilization in her hands. She was the daughter of Sarah Chun, the ambassador who had stood in this same place 8 years ago and watched her species be cast into exile. Today, Elena would finish what that exile had begun. The 12 ancient beings in their towering seats looked smaller than Elena had expected. Growing up during the exile years, she had heard stories that made the council members sound like gods among mortals. Now, seeing them in person, she realized they were just very old creatures who had forgotten what it meant to face something beyond their control. Elena wore the uniform of the United Earth Fleet, but it was unlike any military dress the galaxy had ever seen. The fabric seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight, and the rank insignia appeared to be made from crystallized space itself. Everything about her appearance announced that humanity had moved beyond the need to impress others with conventional displays of power. The Ancient One spoke first, his mechanical voice carrying undertones that Elena's enhanced hearing detected. As barely controlled fear, "Admiral Chun, I presume. We have agreed to this meeting to discuss the current situation between humanity and the Galactic Council." Elena smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Ancient One, council members, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Though I should point out that we could have had this conversation anywhere in the galaxy, your permission was not actually required." The casual statement sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Elena was not threatening them, merely stating a fact. The human fleets that surrounded every council homeworld had already proven that humanity could go anywhere they pleased, whenever they chose. "We are curious about your intentions," the Zephyrian representative said, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. "Your fleets demonstrate capabilities that we do not understand, but you have not taken any aggressive action. What do you want from us?" Elena walked slowly around the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the room without apparent effort. "What do we want?" That is an interesting question. 8 years ago, this council decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain in galactic civilization. You stripped us of our colonies, our trade agreements, our place among the stars. You locked us away in our home system and told us we were not worthy of your company. Elena paused beside the seat where her mother had stood all those years ago. You thought you were protecting the galaxy from human chaos. You believed that isolation would teach us humility and make us more obedient to your ancient wisdom. You were wrong on both counts. The Cortex delegate's 6 arms moved restlessly. We acknowledge that humanity has developed during the exile period. But surely you understand that the Council acted to preserve galactic stability. For millions of years, we have maintained peace and order among thousands of species. Peace and order, Elena repeated thoughtfully. Yes, you have certainly achieved that. A galaxy where nothing changes, where innovation is discouraged, where younger species are told to follow the examples set by their elders millions of years ago. You call it stability, we call it stagnation. Elena stopped walking and faced the Council directly. Do you know what we discovered during our exile? We found out that your way of doing things is not the only way. For thousands of years you have guided galactic development along paths that you consider safe and proven. You have prevented entire civilizations from exploring possibilities that might challenge your established order. The ethereal council members' energy form pulsed with confusion. Are you suggesting that our guidance has been harmful? We have prevented countless wars and disasters by teaching young species to avoid dangerous technologies. Have you? Elena asked. Or have you simply prevented them from finding better solutions to the problems you have been struggling with for millennia? Elena gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing star charts and technical specifications that made the council members lean forward in their seats. This is what humanity accomplished in 8 years of isolation. Energy generation systems that produce more power than they consume. Faster than light travel that does not require your quantum gate networks. Artificial intelligence that demonstrates true creativity and intuition. Medical technology that can reverse aging and repair any injury. Terraforming systems that can transform dead worlds into garden paradises in decades instead of centuries. The display showed images from human colonies that had been rebuilt during the exile years. Worlds that sparkled with cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Space stations that looked more like living organisms than mechanical constructs. Ships that moved through space like whales swimming through an ocean of stars. All of this, Elena continued, was achieved using principles that your science claimed were impossible. We succeeded because we were not limited by your preconceptions about what could and could not be done. The Hive Queen's compound eyes reflected the holographic images. These technologies are real. They would revolutionize galactic civilization. They are real, Elena confirmed. And they represent only the beginning of what is possible. When species are free to explore their full potential instead of being forced to follow ancient templates. The Ancient One's mechanical body hummed as he processed the implications of what Elena was showing them. What are you proposing, Admiral? Elena smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in the expression. I am not proposing anything, Ancient One. I am offering something. Choice. The word hung in the air like a challenge. For millions of years, the Galactic Council has determined the course of civilization for every species in this galaxy. You have decided which technologies could be developed, which directions research could take, how fast species could expand, what kinds of governments they could form. You have been the ultimate authority on everything. Elena's voice grew stronger as she continued. That authority is now ended. Not because we are taking it from you by force, but because species across the galaxy are about to have options you never offered them. The holographic display changed to show communication logs and diplomatic messages. Elena had been busy during the journey to Council space. While your attention was focused on our fleets, we have been in contact with over 300 species throughout the galaxy. We have offered them access to human technology, human scientific knowledge, and human assistance in developing their own unique approaches to the challenges they face. The council members stared at the data in growing alarm. The messages showed species from every corner of galactic space, many of them members of the council's own alliance, expressing interest in human proposals. The response has been enthusiastic, Elena continued. It seems that many species have grown tired of being told that their ideas are too dangerous or too unconventional to pursue. They want the freedom to determine their own destinies. The gardener's wooden voice creaked with distress. You are destroying the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for eons. Without central authority, there will be chaos, war, suffering. Elena shook her head. There will be change. And yes, change can be chaotic and unpredictable, but it can also be wonderful and liberating. The question is whether you want to be part of shaping that change or whether you prefer to cling to a past that is already ending. The Stormcaller representative sparked with agitation. What role does the council play in your vision of the future? Whatever role you choose, Elena replied. The council species have accumulated vast knowledge and experience over millions of years. That wisdom has value, even if your methods of applying it have become outdated. You could become advisors and teachers in a galaxy where every species is free to find its own path. Or you could remain isolated in your old territories, maintaining your ancient ways while the rest of the galaxy moves forward without you. Elena paused to let this choice sink in. But you no longer have the option of controlling everyone else. That era is over. The Ancient One was silent for long minutes, his mechanical mind processing possibilities and probabilities. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. You have given us much to consider, Admiral Chun, but I must ask, why? You have the power to simply impose your will on the galaxy? Why offer us choices instead of demands? Elena's smile held a hint of sadness. Because, Ancient One, that is the difference between the old humanity you exiled and the new humanity that stands before you today. The humans you knew 8 years ago might have sought revenge or tried to dominate others the way you dominated them, but isolation taught us something important. Real strength does not come from controlling others. It comes from giving them the freedom to become their best selves. Elena began walking toward the chamber's exit. You have 1 standard year to decide what role you want to play in the galaxy's future. The new alliance we are building will begin. Operations whether you join us or not. But we hope you will choose to be part of